or actually
I was
don't.
watching you adjust all the tiles, and it was driving my OCD nuts that I was just a little bit bigger than you, and then it adjusted perfectly right at the
Yeah,
end. So
it takes me.
he's still dicking around, ladies and gentlemen. All right, welcome to the Retic Lounge with Lucas Bagnara,
Still doing it. All right, there we
the
go.
finicky podcast host, and Nathan Katz.
It's still off, but oh well.
Lucas. Anyways, guys, we are rounding up on our 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube, and you'll be entered into that VivTech giveaway with over $300 worth of products. That being said, make sure you're joining our Patreon. We have one of the best Retic Patreon in the game. I think that our Discord's super active. I love all our members. So yeah, join in on the fun over there. Lucas, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, we just got an awesome episode for episode 57. We actually went into our Discord to ask for different topics that our Discord and Patreon community wanted to listen to. And this was a very popular demand. They wanted someone in the genetic lab testing ordeal. And I just want to give a shout out real quick to Duran Guerrero. He was over, I think it was Pomona. And that's when he connected with Ben Morrill of Rare Genetics, who we have on tonight. And I got his contact information, and Ben literally within a couple days got back to me, and we were able to set this up within like a week of us connecting. And so that is what we're going to be digging into. And we'll get into a bunch of this, but I think that the reticulated python game needs to step it up with getting sheds out. Won't go too much more in detail, but I think there's a lot of benefit to having genetic testing for multiple reasons for retics, but we're going to let Dr. Ben Morrill take care of all of that stuff. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Whether you're just getting into retics or you've been breeding for years, the first place you want to visit is Stewart Design. More and more breeders keep showing up at shows, on Morph Market, and are all over social media. Sometimes it may feel possible to get anyone's attention. Stewart Designs helps small businesses like yours do big things through brand clarity, helping entrepreneurs to start and scale businesses that are easy to know and love. Their work can help any company or industry, but they've done a ton of work for ours. Stewart Design created the brands for USARK, Canova, Reach Out Reptiles, Coiled, and dozens of other well-known reptile breeders. Like many of us, the owner of Stewart Design, Blake, is a keeper and breeder who fell in love with retics through first working with Garrett Hartle. Although Stewart Design does a lot of corporate work, Blake has a passion for working with people in the reptile industry. Stewart Design can help if you're just getting started or you're ready to take things to the next level, you're struggling to stand out and build your presence online or at shows, you don't want to be like the other guys or get lost in the crowd, and you want to make your own way doing what you love. And also, you have big ideas and know your business is special, but you need help sharing it with the reptile community. If something here resonates with you, reach out to Blake and have a conversation. To learn more or get started, visit stewartdesignbrands.com or call them at 855-SD-LOGOS. Clear brands own markets. Stewart Design helps create them. If you are in the market for an enclosure for your reticulated python or any other one of your reptiles, Focus Cubed Habitats is your one-stop shop for not only the best looking cages on the market, but also provide amazing features and add-ons to your cages. We partnered with Focus Cubed Habitats because they continue to innovate and change the way we house our animals unlike any other caging company out there. Their cages are designed intelligently and provide the most stylish and secure housing for your animal's comfort and well-being. Visit focuscubedhabitats.com for your animal's caging needs. Again, visit focuscubedhabitats.com for some amazing and stylish enclosures.
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the Retic Lounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit vivtechproducts.com and use the code reticlounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit vivtechproducts.com and use our affiliate code reticlounge23 today for 15% off. Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than Heli Guy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your retics environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at heliguyserpents.com and start giving your pets the best. Heli Guy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.heliguyserpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today.
And Ben, what's going on, man?
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome,
Yeah,
man.
man. Happy to have you.
Yeah.
Another Utah boy in the house, we just found out.
That's right. I grew up about an hour and a half north of where you're at now.
Yep.
Are you a Sads Utes fan like Katz?
Not really. And then Utah State, as far as football goes, was never good at all. So
No. You
I just
don't
wasn't
watch
much
Utah
of a
State to win.
No. We did okay in basketball a few years, but
Yeah.
not football.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of the same goes with the Utah football program. We've had a couple of good years, but are we ever going to be in the playoffs and going for the trophy? We'll see. I don't think
We'll
so.
see. You can get a washed up old coach like some teams do and just make a comeback, and who knows? But
we have to have that perfect team again, like we had 15 years ago.
maybe Urban Meyer comes back
Yeah,
and
the
just
Urban
decides to
Meyer
go to
days.
right.
Exactly.
Was that the year that the Utes beat Bama?
I think that was,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
That was pretty big.
Yeah, we had a UNLV game that year that was in the sleet, and it was miserable. Oh, just you were shivering head to toe, but it was great football. Anyways, we're not here to talk about football. We're here to talk about your genetic testing. So you want to give us a little intro and kind of,
Who
soft
you are,
pitch
what
of
you
what you're
do.
doing?
Sure. Yeah, I would imagine like many people listening to this, I grew up loving reptiles, catching snakes and lizards as far back as I can remember. I found when I was moving out of my parents' house, I found my journal. My fourth grade teacher had us write 5 lines every day in school, and I was writing about catching snakes and lizards and things. And so it's always been that way. In high school, I reached out to the local university and said, "Hey, is there a herpetologist that I could talk to?" And amazingly, they gave me a name, and he answered the phone and let me come in and work in his lab. His name is Dr. Joe Mendelson. He's the head of the Atlanta Zoo reptiles and amphibians collection and still doing some research. But that was a big part of getting me into academics. And so as an undergrad and a grad student, I learned a lot of molecular biology. I ended up in an animal science department and using the
Nice.
molecular biology for more animal species or more food animal species like cattle and pigs. But the whole time, all I was ever thinking about was how I could potentially use this for reptiles. And so as soon as I got my PhD in 2011, I went to the Tinley Reptile Show in October of that 2011, right after getting graduated, and talked to a good friend, Sean Christian, I had talked to for several years, that bred carpet pythons, and so we ended up deciding he'd done a lot of business work. I had done the DNA stuff. We were both interested in breeding reptiles, and so that's when we started talking about making genetic testing available in reptile species. And I've been thinking about it pretty much every day since then. And in 2017 or 18, I think it was late 2017, we started offering a sex determination test from shed skins of colubrid snakes. And so that was the first thing we were able to make available. And then about a year ago, we were able to start offering morph testing in ball pythons. And
Awesome.
so that just, I want to make as many different types of tests available that will be helpful to reptile keepers as I can. And that's what we're
So
working
I'm
on.
guessing the colubrid thing was just like animals that were too small to pop and sex safely, or
That's definitely part of it, but I like to explain it to people just like there's so many oil change businesses, like people can change their own oil, but a lot of people don't want to. If you have 2 or 3 snakes and you don't want to learn how to pop or probe, and you don't want to have to pay a vet, like the very first, literally the very first sex determination test that I sold was before we made the link available like we thought, but somebody somehow found it and ordered a test, and it was the owner of a tattoo shop in New York,
Huh.
and he said he'd had this pet corn snake for 10 years, always wondered if it was a boy or a girl, and
There
so
you
he
go.
sent one in. And so yeah, we get, all kinds of different, some breeders of species that are difficult to sex, some people that are older and not able to use their hands like they used to, and it's just easier to send a shed in. And so there's a lot of different reasons why people use it.
I know
Well, and
it's
then you've
huge
definitely.
for.
Oh, go ahead, Lucas. Sorry.
No, that I was gonna say I know it's huge for certain species, like when you're talking about green tree pythons and
Yes.
other type of chondros that are just way too delicate.
Yeah.
That's huge. Do you guys do that in the chondro game?
So I did come up with a way that I could do it that was pretty complicated, and I did it for a little while. I had to sequence the sex chromosome of the sire and the grandsire, the paternal
That's right.
grandsire, and then I could use that information, and then any offspring that had those same markers I knew were male, and the ones that didn't were females. But that was very difficult, and I couldn't scale that up.
Got it.
So when we scaled up over the last year, I was no longer able to do it that way. But
Right.
we are just this week. I'm supposed to get a whole bunch of data, and hopefully we'll be able to have a single shed. So any chondro shed that you have, you should be able to send it in, and we'll be able to do that just like we've been doing with colubrids. But the
Awesome.
chondros have been really difficult to get to work. It's been the number one test Sean and I wanted to do, because we were carpet python breeders and had lots of green tree python friends, and
Right.
we just couldn't get it to work. But hopefully this fall will finally be it.
I'm
Okay.
finally getting my first chondro from Bill
Yeah.
Stiegel, and he was telling me at the time, like when I was talking to him a year and a half ago, like this is how early I was inquiring. I was at the Arlington NARBC, and we were talking about it. He's like, "Yeah, dude, when you're ready," he's like, "we'll be able to sex it with sheds." And then he I finally put the down payment down, and I was like, "All right, let me know what I need to pay to get it tested." He's like, he's not doing the testing right now, but he's supposed to be doing it soon." And I was like, "Damn it."
Mm.
But I'm looking forward to that, because anytime you can sex a green tree python without stressing it out anymore, like that, that's a win.
Yes. Yeah. That's, like I said, the number one test we wanted to do, and it's the one we've spent by far and away the most money on developing, and still failing.
I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than my brain can even comprehend.
Well, and you've been able to make some serious waves over in the ball python industry, even just recently with some of your genetic testing.
Yes, yeah. So we are to the point now, after being about a year into providing some testing. We had just a couple of ball python morphs that we could test for, pied and clown, and a couple others came pretty quick after that. But this October, we should have about 35 different morphs and ball pythons that we can test for.
Awesome. If you don't mind me asking, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. What's your PhD in?
So it's in animal science with a focus in molecular biology.
Okay, awesome. I was just curious. You said you went to grad school, you got your PhD, and just wanted to know what jimble jabble was after the PhD in order to know what you know.
Yep. Yeah, I actually worked with the snake keeper there in Sandy in Utah.
Yeah, they're
Um,
or not Sandy, but they're a little further south. I actually just picked up some shipping material from them
yeah, that's
not too
true.
long ago.
Where? Yeah, I can't remember. They
Uh,
were I can't remember. Starts
not
with
Mapleton.
Maple. Yeah, they were there at first, but the city council like voted them out of there, and they ended up suing them and getting a chunk of money to be able to help buy that warehouse.
Yeah, that warehouse. I mean, they have so much space now, and
Yeah,
they're just in Spanish Fork, I believe, is where
that's
they're
it.
at now.
Yep,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where they're at.
yeah.
So yeah, I used a bunch of data that collected over about 10 years for my dissertation. So my dissertation is actually on the quantitative reproductive traits of ball pythons.
Okay.
So
And did you start that here in Utah?
Yep. Yeah, I got my
Nice.
PhD at Utah State University.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm over here asking you before the interview if you're a Utes fan, or was that during the interview? But yeah, that's an insult.
No, it's fine. If you're talking football, even if you're from Logan, like you can't really be a Utah State University fan because they've never had a good team.
Fair.
Well, and now with all the conference shakeup, like it's just like everyone from Utah just kind of roots for Utah unless you're diehard, I guess.
Guys, we're going back to football talk, all right?
Stop.
Let's keep it focused, all right? Let's keep it focused.
I blame Lucas.
So let me, before we even jump into the retic stuff, and I just kind of want to throw this out there. So I'm gonna kind of ask questions like when we get to the retic side of things. I just want to give you like a forewarning. Um, the way that my brain works is I'm a skeptic at first and need the information. So if I sound like I'm questioning or challenging some of the things that you might be saying, it's not like to be an asshole or anything like that. It's just because I want like a deeper understanding, and there's no one better to ask than you right now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I just wanted to start off with that, but I want to jump into a little bit about what you're doing in the ball python game. I know that you said you've mentioned you've been able to do, I think you said 35 different morphs. Um, but what exactly is the value and like what you guys have been able to do in the ball python game?
So I would say right now the biggest value is for people, which this would translate to any species where they have many morphs to work or several morphs to work with. But anyone that's trying to do triple hets, quad hets, more than that. Like for me personally, I have I breed ball pythons and I breed Honduran milk snakes right now. I've bred several other species in the past, but those are the two I have right now. And for me, there were posset males that I had that are posset for one or two different things. And once I was able to do the testing, that changed my breeding completely. It changed which males I held on to, which males I sold. It changed, how many females some of those males got. And it made it so I was able to make 2 or 3 triple het clutches that hatched out last year that I wouldn't have even done that pairing because I would have just been making like double or triple possets.
Right.
But with the testing, I could do that pairing, and then after the first shed, I do the test, and then I know which babies have what I need and which don't, and I can properly sell them to customers, and they know if they're getting a head or a triple head or whatever it is, they don't have to buy possets. So
Right.
it's a pretty big change in how you do your planning. It also makes it so, like with ball pythons, you have not only recessive traits, we have some incomplete dominant traits that are pretty valuable. And instead of having to, use a visual recessive animal to do your breeding, you can use a het. So if it's an expensive recessive, you can have 2 or 3 other dominant, incomplete dominant morphs on top of that and breed that het and then do the testing and keep the ones that get the het instead of having to have that more expensive recessive animal that
Right.
has those other traits. So it's just a way to be able to make a more designer type of animal faster and be able to know for sure which things you want to hold on, which things you want to breed, and be able to sell. If it's a low dollar animal, you know that up front. It's not a posset that might be worth something and might not.
Right.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I mean, we just did an episode on the retic market, but in terms of like stabilizing a market, this could go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like so um I think about this mostly in like the mainland retic world, but with super dwarfs as well, it applies. But like one thing that we talk about very often is overproduction, getting rid of animals to the wrong people, not suited for them. And one thing that has been a very big, like I see it on Facebook a lot in the retic groups is, someone will say they did a het to a non-het pairing, and people are just livid and pissed off, and they're like, why are people doing pos het like there's no reason for people to be doing that in the retic game when we have
Yeah.
usually the visuals, because we haven't been able to import for a while. So what we have for visuals, they exist, right? And so
Yeah.
one thing that I think this really benefits with the retic community is just like it can really cut back on overproduction, and it really I don't I, it seems more valuable for a breeder in my opinion. Like if you're not obsessed with, and you don't have to get the visual recessive. So let's say we're talking about like ocelot, right? You want to buy a visual ocelot right now, it's $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. And you can now just buy a het, figuratively speaking, if we get this underway in the retic world, which we'll talk on that in a second. But you get the opportunity to buy a het ocelot and take it to I don't know, a tiger or a phantom or whatever other codom you want to try to bring into ocelot. And now you have genetic testing available to know which animals you need to hold back. You no longer have to sell animals as pos hets. I don't know. I think it, like you kind of mentioned before, it's a shortcut. And when I think of shortcuts, it's typically in like a negative way when it comes to breeding. But for retics, with how many eggs they produce, like this is a huge shortcut. Now we
Yeah,
can really cut.
how many responsible homes there are out there. I mean, it's just
Right.
we'd be doing a disservice not to do that kind of stuff and to be even more selective on the clutches we're producing, the animals that we're selling, holding back, all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, yeah, it's just valuable. So let me ask you this. I kind of want to bring in,
Oh,
it looked like he
yeah,
cut out.
he's back.
And he's back. All right. Can you hear us?
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to bring in one of the first questions from our Patreon. So we have a list of questions. The first one is from Luke. Luke is over in Scotland. It's got a great collection. He has a bunch of wild caught stuff because they can still have it over there. But so one thing that he wanted to know was, do you guys predict having any trouble with anery? I don't know if you have heard about the anery gene in retics, but there's typically trouble identifying visuals for aneries because a lot of hets are very strong. Does that play an impact at all when it comes to genetic testing and how that works out?
So way I like to describe it for breeders is so there's two big things that we're looking at. We're looking at phenotype. So that's when you look at the animal, that's what you see.
Right.
And so that's what you're talking about as phenotype. What I
Yeah.
look at is the genotype, as the code in the DNA that
Okay.
makes it look a certain way. And so for many things, the genotype, using the genotype, I can predict the phenotype, but that's not always the case. But in what you all are talking about, what I would expect would happen is we would be able to see, for sure which ones are het and which ones are homozygous. The only thing that would be difficult is if it ends up being like, we do have one morph in ball pythons, the desert ghost, that ended up being polygenic.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was much more complicated than we originally thought. So we know two of the different genes, they're on different chromosomes that affect desert ghost. And we're going to have to learn more because there's at least one other one that plays a pretty big role. But so essentially, I need you all to send me anery sheds and let me know, if
I got
you
you.
believe
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
homozygous,
I
heterozygous.
I
I
have
get
that.
that code. Yeah, if I get that code from 30 or 40 different aneries or head aneries or whatever you can send in, then I can see what the code says, and then going off of how you as breeders categorize them, whether you believe they are homozygous or heterozygous, then I can see what markers match what you're talking about, and that's when we'll know if the code will tell us,
I,
we can use that to predict the phenotype.
Yeah. And I think where we're probably going to get into some complications is there's a lot of het anery stuff out there that was sold as anery. And so if people are telling you it's the homozygous instead of the heterozygous, it's going to be a clusterfuck for you. I'm letting you know ahead of time. It's going to be a
Yeah.
nightmare at first, but I do know I have one animal in my collection that without a doubt is homozygous for anery. But I kind of have a prediction as well with anery that is going to kind of be like Desert Ghost with the AB type of thing, because you'll see some aneries that show and represent very weak compared to other aneries that are without a doubt. I see way too much variance between the two, where I think anery is playing a lot like it does in boas, where there's different types of aneries and some aneries might not play well with others.
Interesting. Yeah, it definitely could. If you as breeders are noticing a high variation in the phenotype, then there's a good chance it will be complicated genotype as well. But the only
Yeah.
way I'll know is if I get sheds and look at the DNA.
Yeah.
And does it matter the age of the animal that you're sending sheds in? I
Nope.
would assume not.
Nope, it doesn't. The only thing that you really need to be careful about is moisture, humidity, being wet. Like if you come in and the whole shed is in the water bowl and you just came in on a Monday, you haven't been in there since Friday, it looks gross, then I'm probably not going to get any DNA out of that shed. That's really the only
Yeah.
thing to worry about is if you want to get a shed from a snake to send in for genetic testing, check it every morning and every night. When it's, its eyes go clear, it's, any day it's going to shed. Just check it every morning and night. Pull it as soon as you can. We only need a piece about the size of a quarter to a silver dollar. We can do like 30 to 50 tests with that much shed. So you don't need to send a whole shed. You don't need to send a big piece, just a small piece. And so you remove it, tear out the cleanest, flattest, prettiest part that's about the size of a quarter. Let that completely dry, and then either put it into like a small envelope or a Ziploc, and that's perfect. And I've run sheds that I've had in Ziploc bags just at room temperature after 5 years, and they still work great.
Now, can I ask you how many retic sheds have you been testing so far?
I think that I've done zero testing so far. I think that I have still less than 10 that have come in, if I remember right. I
What?
do know this
That's
last
disappointing.
like a week or two ago, I think I just got another envelope with retic sheds. So that one, maybe that one makes me a liar if there's a bunch in there. But yeah, I have not gotten very many. Most of the time, what I found is there's a lot of people that are excited and say, "Hey, yeah, I'll do this," but then you have to actually remember, make it happen, get them sent in, get them collected and get them sent in. And sometimes that we get a
That's
lot of drop off.
Oh,
that's yeah,
I
I was
I
gonna say
put the
that's my
name
weakness.
procrastinate. Like
The name-
I have a pair of prescription like
that's
inserts for
hilarious.
my sunglasses that have needed repair, and all I have to do is throw them through the mail, and I'm good to go. I haven't done it for like 4 months just because I just haven't really had the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally was like, I got a product that I wasn't 100% satisfied with, and I could have gotten the $400 refund, but the fact that I don't just want to send it back in the mail, I'm just going to settle for what I have. It's one of those things. I need to find a way
Yep.
to make it through. But I mean, but 10, like, I'm going to pause this here for a second. Um,
Yeah, I'm sending sheds before those prescription sunglasses. That's
yeah,
discouraging as hell to me.
I I cannot stress the importance of us as a retic community getting together and getting behind this and finally doing it at the very least for morphs. Um, like again, wouldn't you like to be able to buy a het to take to a non-het and know what like you're going to like what you can keep back and what you can sell as a legit het? Because if we're being honest and if our integrity is good, um, a pos het animal that you sell should not be valued more than the normal non het because now you're trying to make money off of a pipe dream that might not pan out and yeah, like it's a way for you guys as breeders to make more money off of those pos het pairings. If you guys are worried about the financial aspect of it, but yeah, that's well, I'm going to be getting some sheds out, specifically Anery, Ghost, Ocelot, and Anthrax for the recessives.
Awesome.
Without a doubt, I'll get them over to you. But I wanted to ask you this. We have an awesome Patreon member, Christina, with genetics nerd, and she taught me the difference of a morph and a gene, right? And so, we call them morphs because we don't know where on the DNA it's located. But let me ask you this: if you're doing genetic testing and we send these in, are you able to identify where within that genetic code that morph lies, and then can we therefore call it a gene?
We certainly could in some cases. So what we do is just really briefly, we'll get like if we're working on anery, we get like 30 anery sheds we know are either anery or het anery, and it's okay if there's some of each. and it's okay if we don't know for sure which are which. That won't mess up our test. But what we need is 20 to 30 that we know are either have 1 copy or 2 copies of anery. And then we have another 20 to 30 sheds. We know none of them have anery. So it's okay if they're albino or pied or some other morph. We just can't have them have anery. And then we sequence the whole genome of all 60 of those, 40 to 60. And then we use very, very complicated bioinformatics software that will look for specific DNA changes in the aneries that are not present in the other pool. And then we go after those that are only seen in the aneries, not seen in the normal or other pool. And so sometimes we are able to find markers that are in a gene that's known, and we know that it makes sense. Like with albino, it ends up being in the ACA2 gene. We know that causes albinism in all kinds of different species. Then we can say, okay, yeah, we're pretty confident this is the gene that actually causes this mutation, causes this to be an albino. What we can't know for sure sometimes, especially since we're working in species that don't have really, like if we're working in the mouse or, something like that, it would be much easier to know for sure what the DNA code is, what gene it is. But since we're working in ball python or in reticulated python or, species where there's not as much genomic work done, sometimes we don't know for sure what gene it's in. And so that takes some more time. So I might have a test that I know there's this change that's in all aneries and not in other. So it's a really good test to know whether you have anery or not, but it might not be the actual, it might not be the actual change that causes it. It might be one close by that always passes with it. So,
okay. So not
but over
guaranteed that
time,
we can call it a gene, but I guess, yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's just the more that we do it and the more that we learn, the more that we're going to, the chances increase that we'll be able to identify which gene is causing the mutation.
Okay.
Yeah. So in ball pythons, we have the most headway. There's a couple of groups, one at Eastern Michigan University, Dr. Hannah Seidel, the ball python project. She's working with her students, and they've been able to find the actual genes for like all of the different types of albino in ball pythons and piebald,
Even
and
lavender?
hypo. Yep. We know
Awesome.
that's actually an ACA2 is.
Cool.
And then there's another group in Canada, and they were the very first ones to do a ball python mutation. They found piebald, and then they've also found, and that's published, and then they've also found a couple others since then. And let's see, the really cool additional step they did is they worked with a group in Georgia who did the first CRISPR editing of a reptile to make an albino anole lizard. And so the Canada group worked with the Georgia group, gave them the piebald code, and then with CRISPR, they made a piebald anole lizard. So that was pretty sweet.
Wait, what?
That's
wild.
pretty sick.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Very cool. So yeah, there's been some really cool academic work in this area. It's not something that they get a lot of support from other academics because you're doing it on, pet species and blah, blah, blah.
Right. A species. And that's the first thing that ran in my mind, that someone from, Michigan and a university at that matter is doing it on an animal that's not indigenous to the US in the first place. So I think that's pretty cool though.
Yes.
So a couple people on our Patreon asked us this, but I'm going to just kind of read right here. Jason wants to know, he's curious how many samples it takes to generate a simple baseline for a new species. So let's say we're talking about anery or albino or whatever the case it is in retics that we don't have. How many samples does it really take for you to be able to hone in on it?
Most of the time, if I have 30 or 40 that are different individuals, and they can't be like all from the same clutch. So with ball pythons, that's not a problem because the clutch size is small. But what would not work is for you to just send me all the sheds from the babies that just came from one clutch. What I need is enough other genetic variation to be able to know which genetic change actually goes with the morph we're trying to find. So if we had at least 5 different clutches in those 25, 35, somewhere in there, that's usually enough that we can find it.
Okay, cool.
Good to know.
And if I can get 50 or 60, that's even better. That makes the bioinformatics faster, and it's less
Right.
false positives that we have to chase. So
I mean, it sounds like a lot. Like it sounds like a lot, but in reality, like how many people are working with different genes that can easily send it? Like even if each person working with, let's say, I don't know, you know, purple or orange glow, or actually, no, we'll get into the allelic stuff in a second here because that's kind of interesting. But like just send one shed in, and if everyone sends one shed of that morph that they're working with, we'll get it done. Like
yep.
it's really I feel like it's not that big of an undertaking.
Or if there's 10 breeders that are going to breed on one side or the other as a visual, so you know all the babies are going to be hets. If there's 10 breeders that will just send 5 from that clutch,
Right.
then you've got 50 right there.
Yeah. I'm going to do that with anthrax here in a bit. I got a bunch of babies that are shedding, and I'll send some sheds over as well as yeah, I'm excited for that.
Perfect.
But Nathan, why don't you ask that other question that Luke was talking about in regards to allelic genes?
Let me get it back right now.
Yeah, mine closed down. I was hoping you had it open, but it is
I
what it is.
did. I literally just switched as you asked that. So let's see.
It's his third one.
Oh yeah. Do issues arise from allelic morphs? Will they be able to tell the difference between a het mocha, caramel, white, purple, for example? So just like the different strains of albino, like we were talking about.
Are you familiar with that with those morphs?
I'm more familiar with the ball python stuff, but it sounds like it's very similar, like with albino and candy or toffee.
Basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was kind
they're
of thinking.
Yeah,
yeah.
so
So like you can breed.
oh, I cut off again.
It's
Give
good
them
enough we can wait.
we can. This is juicy.
Patience is a virtue or something like that.
Something like that.
I don't know why it wants to drop.
You're good. So yeah, just like for example, orange glow is the visual double recessive of caramel, albino, and like purple or white or one of the Clark strains. And so do you see an issue with oh man, damn it. Nathan, are you on mute? Are you laughing hard and I can't hear you?
Yeah,
You
play by
were.
play
Okay.
right there.
All right. Anyways, while that's happening, okay, you're back. Nope, he's not. This is gonna make for a great blooper. We need to have just an episode of running bloopers.
Oh, the timing.
No, that's okay. What I'm actually gonna
That
have
was
him do is
hilarious.
I'm
That
gonna
was
have him.
so fucking funny.
I'm gonna see if I can have him just kind of refresh, and that was good.
All right,
I got
you're
like
back.
see ya. It's almost like he did it on purpose. All right. So in the meantime, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go back to me and Nathan here, and we'll see if he jumps back on here in a second. But anyways, if you guys have any comments or want any further questions, Ben did actually just come back. Ben, I'm gonna ask you if you don't mind. Hit the refresh and rejoin. Jeez.
No, I think that he hit the
Oh,
refresh.
okay. I hope so.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I think we're good.
if you guys have any questions or any comments down below, but I kind of want to take the moment while he's doing that to kind of just discuss, like, I feel like we really need to, like, why this has been around now for a few years.
Yeah,
Why?
it's something I've been watching in the ball python market. It was just something that I guess in my mind was just not being worked with in retics yet. So I was waiting, but I don't know why wait and not just reach out.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. But anyways, I think we got Ben back, and he's literally cut out right again. This is ridiculous.
Lucas, just shut up and maybe it'll stay.
I'm texting him to
don't say anything about it, and it'll
Okay.
be good.
Refresh your browser if you can, Ben. Oh wait, no, don't, because you have full service right now. I'm bringing him back on. All right. Okay, we're good.
I
That
don't know
was
why it's getting
funny.
angry all of a sudden.
All right. So we were talking
Your
about
timing was impeccable. Let me
it
just
was
say that.
every time I would be like, all right, he's back. You would just shut off right again.
Dang it.
So let me kind of also explain another example of allelic. So we have you heard of a cow reticulated python?
hmm
Right. So to make a cow, you take a phantom that's a incomplete dominant, and you take an OGS, which is in theory right now it's a recessive, mutation. Um, and you breed those together, and it creates a cow. So they're allelic, right? So any issues you see arising with that kind of stuff, or can you just explain how that works?
So different albinos and ball pythons. The ones that are allelic is what was known as albino, candy, and toffee. And for Eastern Michigan, they were able to find two different things: it albino, and then the candy and toffee, the exact same thing. And so there's just two different mutations, one that causes the normal albino, another one causes what breeders were calling candy and toffee. Then we
Okay.
have another allelic complex called the yellow belly complex.
Yep.
And you have yellow belly, asphalt, gravel, spectre, and spark. So there's five different, what breeders were calling different things. And a couple of them I thought maybe it was going to be the exact same thing, but all five ended up being different genetic codes. So there are changes in the same gene, but they're five different changes that cause five different looks, five different phenotypes. And so we'll be able to, once we can look at the code, we can say, okay, if there's four different allelic things going on that you're seeing different as a breeder, we'll be able to look and see if there actually are four different codes, or if there's three different codes and really two that you thought were different are actually identical.
Okay, cool. So that should work out fine. Then I feel like if you guys provide the explanation enough as well, because at the end of the day, what we're actually really doing is we're singling out and isolating a specific morph, right? And so as long as we understand, for example, in that same sequence, if we understand what OGS is, orange ghost stripe is, and whether it's a head or not, and same thing with, obviously a phantom is a incomplete dominant, so we know what phantom is. Um, but yeah, as far as like the albino stuff goes, it seems like you guys have had that covered with the ball python game for a while now.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't see that being a problem at all. We should be able to figure that out.
So our next question from Luke, and it's a question I have kind of on my own, is I remember hearing about trying to predict adult size from hatchling sheds. Is that still a goal, or is it more morph IDing at this point?
Really, from our standpoint, we can only do what we get sheds from you all for. So if people are excited about morphs and you send me morph sheds, you're going to get morph tests. If you're more interested in the length, what I would need is, you know, 30, 40, 50 sheds that are coming from, this is kind of a specialized thing. So this might not be as easy to do. But if we get 30, 40, 50 sheds that we are from animals that are going to,
I think this is a first for us.
No, it's not.
I mean, to this extent?
No, it's not.
You sure? He's
No,
back.
no, no,
Okay.
no,
Let me
no.
bring him back.
I
Okay.
think it was Ryan and Erica McVeigh.
Oh, that's right. They were having issues as well. So
Gotta, we got little bits of information so far. We'll get the rest. Don't worry.
right. We will. Now, one thing that I do want to bring up when he gets back in, and we're not even going to bring him back on, even though he's here, because I don't want to jinx it real quick. So we're just going to keep talking for a second. But I am interested in, this is kind of the length aspect is one of those topics I definitely had some of the challenging aspects that I want to talk about. See, I was about to bring it back on and he dropped off. So Yeah, I definitely, I mean, as far as like, do you have questions or concerns about how length is? Let me just do this. I'm bringing him back. Ben.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask, actually, no, let me, oh my God. You know what? I was thinking in my mind, in the back of my mind, I was like, this is going to be an editing nightmare, but screw it. We're going to let it roll. All right. Let's all just take a deep breath real quick.
Lucas, take a deep breath real quick.
See? This is great. I am going to tell him right here. I'm going to text him again to refresh.
Kick the kids off the Wi-Fi. That's what I always say. When my internet's going slow, I yell at my imaginary kids and say, "Get off the damn Wi-Fi."
Damn it, Johnny. What would you
Damn
name
it,
your
Allie,
kids?
get off the Wi-Fi. I
Allie, there
named
you
her
go.
Allie because my last name's Katz.
Okay, Allie Katz. Can you please, if you have a daughter, please do that?
Doesn't it sound like a stripper name though? Like, I don't
That's
know.
no, I was thinking porn star. Like you totally should.
Oh yeah, because that's what every father wants.
Absolutely. No, I take that back. I'm literally wearing.
Okay, Lucas.
I take that back.
Welcome back to the Retic Lounge.
I take that back. I literally, my heart sank when I said that. I'm wearing my girl dad shirt right now, and I just have never felt more shittier in my life before. Oh man,
Freudian
damn.
slip.
Oof. Absolutely, I said. It was definitely sarcasm.
Oh, that was so funny.
I would literally bury my daughter before that happened.
Can we just have an outtakes episode?
Ben, did you get the chance to refresh?
Yep, gotcha.
I can. Did you have an opportunity to refresh or no?
Okay.
Okay,
That might work.
Yeah, I might have to mess with the screen real quick. So give us a moment while we go ahead and bring him back on.
No
No,
sweat. It's just
that's okay.
Yeah, we're all in different locations. Shit happens.
Yeah, let me go ahead and bring this back over, and we'll get you reconfigured here on our screen. This is not working. Literally, keep switching back and forth to stupid crap. So, all right, I'm gonna switch this over. This is the part. See, this is nice. This is the part where I get to cut out and stick around with. No kidding, right? Okay, so there we go. I'm gonna delete that, and then I'm gonna bring you back on. Crop and scale. Get you dancing in the middle of us right here. Boom. And all right, we're going to go back. All right. So finally, hopefully, after all the technical difficulties, we'll be done with that aspect. But if you remember what even you were talking about as far as length goes, go ahead and kick us back off.
So the sheds we need to have sent in for a adult length test, I would need like 30, 40, 50 sheds from animals we know are going to be over like 15 feet long as adults. So they need to be from animals that are already, are going to be big. And then we would need another 30, 40 from animals that are never going to be over 10 feet or 12 feet or whatever, wherever you want to draw the line.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you for a second. I
Yeah.
don't know if Weston from Wildfire ever listens to our podcast, but Adler, I'm telling you to make this a clip. Weston, I need your sheds. I'll send them over. I know you have animals that are over 15
You have
feet.
monsters.
And you're not far from me. So please, Weston, just give me some sheds. I'll send them his way.
Let's do it.
I wanted to ask you real quick. So, are you saying that you'll be able to pick up where on the genome, which genetic refers to length?
So most likely, there will be many. So it'll be a polygenic trait. There will be many different genes that contribute to whether it's going to be long or short. So in humans, they just did. I think it's within the last year or two. They did a very large study on lots of different genetic work that's been done on height in humans, and there's like 10,000 different genetic mutations that they know have something to do with how tall a person will be. Um, who knows if there's going to be that many in pythons, but we certainly don't need to know, if there are 10,000, we don't need to know that. We need to know like the top 10 or something like that. So what we would do is the same thing I described earlier. We would use that pool of for sure over 10 feet or should for sure be under 10 feet or most likely to be under 10 feet. We would look at those two pools and use that same bioinformatics software to pick out genetic changes that are present in the shorter pythons and then absent in the larger ones. And then what we could do is say, you hatch out some babies from a cross or something like that. And then, or you just bought one, somebody told you is such and such, but you want to, send a shed in, you just send a shed in to us. It doesn't matter if that baby just hatched out or if it's 5 years old or whatever. We'd be able to tell you the percent chance, hey, and we have to have a database. So we have to start building this. But once we have a database, we could say, hey, you have a 70% chance that this snake will never be over 10 feet. That would be the kind of thing we could do. Or this one is 20% chance it'll be under 10 feet. Or this one's 95% chance it will never get to 10 feet. That's the kind of test we could get eventually. But it's definitely something we have to build to. We have to have reference genetics to be able to work from.
Just
so it's a lot like
large sample size, basically.
What's that?
A large sample size, then.
Yeah, it eventually can be kind of like your dog. You want to know what percent, different breeds your dog is. This would be the same kind of a thing. We would have markers for short retics and markers for large retics, and then we could tell you, hey, this specific baby has a lot of markers for a short retic. This is your percent chance it will stay short.
So in terms of short retic versus long retic, we start getting into locality, and that's kind of where I get the most skeptical, I guess. Is that a goal of yours to look for locality?
Before we go into that, it's a great question because I definitely want to dive into the locality stuff. But before we even go into that, as far as length and stuff goes, can I provide like a recommendation on? And it's dumb that I'm even recommending to someone who has a PhD and all this crap, but
I don't know retics. So
yeah, so here's my concern about like length, right? Because length is also very much correlated with diet, right? Because even a pure Calatoa, which is a super dwarf, gets 10, 11 feet if fed very well. And there's some larger animals that do get that big. And so I guess what I would like to see as far as because the way that my brain conceptualizes like length when it comes to these crosses with super dwarf and mainlands, right? I'm going to use those generic terms because that's what I think we need to be able to try to extract is because we don't know, we don't have coordinate data to determine specific locality, and this is a scientific component. So if any of you have watched our previous episode with what is a locality, a pure locality retic, we have our standards for the industry that are industry wide with different type of animals. But I guess what I think would need to happen is we would need to find out the differences of the super dwarf in the mainland when it comes to size, because the way that I see it is like you have a 62.5% super dwarf and the rest is mainland, right? Theoretically. The way that I see it is that there's still a chance that some of the babies in those clutch get the length more so from the mainland side than they do the super dwarf side, whereas other animals might get it from the super dwarf side. So I think that's the important thing to isolate when it comes to length. And rather than giving hope of a length, because again, diet is everything. I can keep a mainland 10 feet. I totally can. But I can also push that mainland to be 14 feet. And it's no different with super dwarfs, except that maximum length is going to be smaller than the mainland. And so rather than pushing it to a certain length, I'd rather that genetic testing give us how much genetics of that animal are contributed from the super dwarf side instead of the mainland side, as opposed to, because we're already running into a lot of sales tactics in terms of like size. And I'd rather see more of like, no, there's way more genetics pulling from the superdwarf world than the mainland world. And that's going to make people, I think, feel more confident with buying a 62.5% or a 56.25% superdwarf, where they can know that the specific animal they're looking at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When we already have established that we can't get receipts and importation, uh, data, at least solid importation data of what happened with these animals.
Right. Did that make sense in terms of like determining potential size? Is I feel like that's a lot more of a, I don't know. I feel like that's a good guide for buyers, still knowing that length is, it's determined by so many other factors as opposed to just genetics alone. It's totally diet as well, because in theory and even scientifically, superdwarfs are a result of insular dwarfism with smaller availability with food, smaller prey size. And so naturally, through the next 50 years, we're going to be reversing that insular dwarfism because we're feeding superdwarfs pigs and rabbits and massive rats that they don't have on the islands. So therefore, we're already slowly going to be reversing what evolution has done for these animals. And so I'd rather see it go towards like, no, this snake has a lot more of the superdwarf component than it does the mainland component.
Yeah, and so that's the cool thing about right now is it's kind of in you as retic keepers and breeders. It's in your hands how you want this to be structured. The pools that I compare, it could be, hey, this is a group that we, can as a group agree are super dwarfs, or as small as they can be, or however you want to call that group that doesn't make people mad.
Right.
And then these are mainlands, and then we could design a test that will tell you, hey, this is 70% of the markers are from the super dwarf group,
Yeah,
30%
that would be
from the
huge.
mainland group. We could definitely do that. It all depends on what you all provide us as the two pools to compare. We can do it any way that's most helpful to you, but we have
Awesome.
to have the sheds. So once we have the sheds, we know how you want to categorize them, which pool, and it doesn't have to just be two pools. So like with panther chameleons, they went to Madagascar and collected like 300 different panther chameleons, took a picture, took a DNA sample. And so I actually have a bunch of genetic information across their whole range. So we can actually do different localities with panther chameleons. So there can be, 7 or 10 different pools. It doesn't have to just be two. So if you wanted to have, what you would categorize as a dwarf, a super dwarf, and a mainland, or, however you want to do it, as
Right.
long as you as a group agree, hey, I want to compare these two, or I want to compare these three, whatever you feel comfortable with as a group, this is what we want to do. We can make that test happen as long as we get the sheds.
So
Okay.
is a shed maybe more valuable from, say, someone taking an expedition to one of these islands we consider super dwarf? Because
Oh,
there's
that would,
starting
We
to be more of that going on.
I
that would
feel
be
like we
amazing.
need to do that.
Yeah, that would be great. I did talk to Duran, also got me in touch with Garrett
Daniel?
Hartle, and
Oh, okay.
I talked to him
Daniel
about this as
Solis
well.
is the one I would talk to just because he's taking expeditions out
Say that
to
again.
Daniel Solis.
Solis. Okay.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
actually going to the islands,
he
talking with
has
the locals.
sheds.
He's going to the cave systems where these animals are being collected. So
Yeah.
I
I,
think that would be invaluable.
yeah, because the way that I see it with locality stuff, and I mean, I guess since we're the community and we're talking to you, this is just kind of mine and Nathan's perspective. And so I hope that more people are willing to chime in and give the input. But I feel like giving locality information and data based off of what we have in the US is not sufficient, right? Because a lot of stuff out there is questionable at best, and then even the stuff that we do consider tried and true with locality stuff is still just going off of relationship with importer exporter and just going off of reputability. And I know Daniel Solis has some sheds from some of the specific Superdwarf islands, and I'm going to shout out him right here. He's going back in 2024, and there's other people that are supposed to be going with him. So he'll have more, but like, how much shed do you need from these islands collected? Because I don't know if you've heard, but it's 35 hours on a plane just to get to Solaire Island, and then it's another 20 hours from Solaire Island to get to the Superdwarf Islands. So it's not like going to Madagascar, or it's not like going to Malaysia or to Australia. Getting these sheds are, I mean, I loved what Daniel Soley said in the Reach Out Reptile um, interview that he did, but I truly think that these like Kalatoa, Madu, Korumpas, I really do think that they are probably one of the most rare species of pythons out there, just because of how isolated and far away these islands are from everywhere else.
That's cool. Yeah, that would be amazing to be able to have some of those samples. I know Dr. Warren Booth had kind of gone down this road to try to do some of this with retics, and he actually just started working at Virginia Tech. He's my neighbor now, so
Cool.
I need to meet up with him. He's already told me twice, hey, we got to meet up and have dinner or something. So I need to do that and see where he's at, because I know he at least collected some and started doing some work. I think not only with retics but also with like some either carpets or scrubs or something like that. But yeah, if there any additional, whether they're imported animals to a zoo and they have actual GPS data for them, or it's a academic group that went out, kind of like that one I talked about in Madagascar. If there's an academic group that's done something like this, I just haven't done the literature review for it for retics yet. But
Yeah.
yeah, any of that that's been published and is publicly available, we can have that be part of what we're using to come up with a test. But yeah, any new stuff coming would be excellent. And I would say, as far as how much of the shed, if it's that difficult to get, I probably would keep as much of it as I could myself if I'm the one that collected it. But what you actually send to us could still be, a fairly small piece, silver dollar at the most.
That's all you need, though, in order to really, like, you need one shed from one animal from that
A
island.
quarter
No,
piece
we
of
need
the
multiple
shed.
individuals.
Okay,
Okay.
that's what that was my biggest concern, is
Yeah.
how many. So like, what would the number be? Because like, if we're gonna shoot this out there, I'm gonna hit up Daniel Solis and be like, you cannot come back to the U.S. without 30 Karumba.
So, as the genetics person, I will say as many as you can possibly get me. If you can
Okay.
get me 100, I'm super happy.
Okay.
But I think that you also have to look at it as, if you think that you can't do it, then you're definitely never going to do it. If you think that you can do it, then at least you have a chance. So if we think we can do it, we get as many as we can, even if it's 3 or 4, that at least gives us something. We know there's 3 or 4 that for sure came from this place. And maybe we have, another 3 or 4 from a zoo, another 3 or 4 from a keeper that's had them for the last 25 years. And, there might be a few others we can say, hey, we can compare these, see how similar. If they all look really similar, then maybe that's a really good group to say this is from this island. But if we say, hey, it's going to be too hard, and we just don't try, then we definitely aren't going to get it.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's important for us to try to do, and I mean, at the very least, maybe in 50 years, we'll have enough people going on trips out there. And I mean, maybe it's not something that benefits us right away, but as far as like our animals are concerned and preserving locality, um, even if we can find that out in 40, 50 years, uh, that's still valuable for, I think, the US.
Yeah, and it's the same with dog breed testing and with horse genetic testing and cattle genetic testing. Like every year that goes by, you can compile more information. The more detailed information breeders are giving when they send these samples in to get tested, you can build more and more. Like with 23andMe, if you get a 23andMe done, 6 months later to say, hey, we just found out more information about, this affects your sample. Another 4 months, you get another, email that says, hey, we also know that can be the same thing with our animals, but we have to start somewhere.
Right.
And once we
Absolutely.
start it, then we can make it better. Every year that goes by, we can make it better.
Awesome.
So, a bit of a random question, just because you're one of the few people we get to talk to, just with your profession that gets to also intermingle with AZA people. Um, do a lot of these zoos and aquariums have GPS data on the different species that they're bringing in, or do they rely just as heavily on the captive breeding population that we see within the states?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I would say I see some of both. I would say in academics, they're definitely much more strict. With zoos, it's less the case, but it's certainly better. There's usually more paperwork and things recorded and specific detailed information on an animal that was imported for a zoo than just with breeders. A lot of the time, when I'm trying to get as much information as I can, like we did a whole genome paper on green tree pythons, and the keeper that provided the animal that we did that whole genome sequencing on, he said it was imported this year, and the importer said it was from this island, and that's as detailed as it was. And most of the time, the zoos can
What
provide.
locality was it?
I think it was a roo, if I remember
Awesome.
right.
Because I'm about to get a pair of Aru, so good to know.
Yeah. So it was Ian Bassell. He sent
Oh,
one
nice.
that was imported in as a wild caught, and that was what we wanted. We didn't want it to be something that had been
Farm bred or
multiple generations or anything. We wanted it to be as wild a specimen as possible for us to get the whole genome sequencing on. So yeah, it seems to be more detailed information from zoos than from breeders in general, but it still isn't always perfect. And there are, like with the Madagascar boas, the samples we got in, some of those were animals that are like 40 years old, and
that's
like
awesome.
they do know where they came from. And I think you think even one of them that was in her like 35, 37, something like that, she was still producing babies.
Nice.
No, it's
Yeah.
it's just a super interesting topic for me, just because I know in the past the AZA has been heavily reliant on even just the reptile smuggling industry.
Yeah.
Not even reptile smuggling, just animal smuggling in general.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely times when they don't know much about the animal either.
Right. Right. So for me, we cover the three main areas that I wanted to talk about in regards to retic specifically. So we talked about morphs. We talked about locality. We talked about length and size. Now, I wanted to ask you another one of our Nathan. Quit smiling, you child. Um, um, I wanted to ask you one other question that a Patreon had that I also was going to ask you as well. But is it too early, or typically, what do we think the price to get these type of things? Like, if we wanted to set a shed in, what would the price be roughly in order to get this? And then also, like, do you guys do any clutch discounts, right? Or is it just price per individual?
So up to this point, since we started, so right now all of our testing is available through Morph Market or Clutch. Those are our two vendors. And that we did it that way because I'm a scientist and Sean is a business person, and we wanted to get as many tests available as possible. And so we didn't want to have to try to figure out the database stuff, or have to pay and work with someone to get it, where Morph Market and Clutch already had that going for reptile keepers. Um, so for right now, those are the two vendors. And for ball pythons, just as an example, a single morph test is $65. For two morphs, it's $90. And then to get all of right now, like today, if you ordered a ball python panel that has all of the genes we have to date, it's about 20, 21, 22, something like that. That's $120.
Okay.
Because we can do, if you just want everything, we can actually do that pretty efficiently and cheap. We extract the DNA, we do all the tests at one time, and we do it in bulk. So we usually only do those runs about once a month, sometimes twice a month. And so we batch them together and we do a large run so that we can get the cost per sample down quite a bit. So that
Okay.
way we can, if you say, hey, I just got this ball python, I don't know for sure what it is, we can just run it for everything and let you know what it's positive
Right.
for the tests that we have. And then a test like the locality or length kind of a test that we've talked about. In ball pythons, that's probably going to be, we don't have that available yet, but that should be available in October. And that's when we'll have more morphs. And so it'll do sex determination. It'll do the 35 morphs we'll have by that time, all that. And that's going to probably be like $130, $140, something like
Okay.
that.
So proving out the Volta.
What's that?
So proving out the Volta.
Yes, that's
Nice.
something we should be able to do.
Nice.
And the average clutch size, as we collect more data, we should be able to help give breeders an idea of their offspring, which females are more likely to have larger clutches, given the database
Awesome.
that we'll build up.
One thing that I kind of have a small concern on the retake end of the spectrum versus ball python, you get a ball python clutch and it's 8-9 eggs for a decent sized clutch. It would be hard for a retake breeder to think about a $60 to $100 test for 30-40 animals.
Yep.
So that it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But either way, still a valuable thing for us to have, even if it's not utilized as much. Still super valuable for us to continue sending sheds in.
Well,
Yeah, and
and I have a question on that aspect
well,
too.
just to wrap that up,
Yeah.
in October we also will be giving some quantity discount
Cool.
choices. So, and I would expect those prices I just told you. I would expect those to either stay the same or go down over time because we should be able to make it more efficient and cheaper on our end. And whenever we can do that, we'll drop the price so that it can be cheaper. We
Cool.
certainly want to make it so lots of people can do it. And volume, like if you're talking about a pregnancy test, the reason why they were able to make a pregnancy test so cheap and easy was because millions of people needed it. And so the more volume we do, whether it's ball pythons or ticks, corn snakes, whatever, the more volume we're doing, the cheaper we can make things. And so those, like I said, those prices I just told you, a year from now, that might not, be the same.
Yeah, for
Maybe
sure.
it'll improve on that, but definitely we'll at least have some quantity discounts starting in October.
Yeah.
And just one question that I have that kind of goes along with all that is you were mentioning earlier that you have about 10 retic sheds, maybe a couple more hiding in that package. Is there any I don't know, maybe like donation that you're taking right now of just samples of retics just to get a baseline without people getting genetic testing
Oh yeah.
back?
Yeah, so that's definitely anything with Retix right now. We have if you go to raregeneticsinc.com, the help us, that gives you a PO box to send to. And that's just if you want a
Sweet.
new test to be developed, like in this case with Retix, yeah, just send that there and that will come directly to me, to my PO box here in Virginia. And I will get those sequenced and that will go towards designing Retic tests. There's definitely no cost for that. You literally just have to use a normal stamp. If you're sending like if you're only giving me a small part of the shed, if you're giving me whole, mainland retic sheds, then you're going to have to get boxes. But if you just send me little pieces, most people can, and you use a small Ziploc, most people can send 2 to 4 and just use one stamp and just snail mail it. It's totally fine. It's in a Ziploc bag. Even if it gets rained on or whatever, the shed will still be good. So it's pretty cheap and easy. If you're going to send me 20 or 30, you can get if it fits, it ships, just send it, a
Right.
cheap way. It doesn't need to cost very much, but that's the only cost is getting the sheds to us. And we will go to a few shows. Like we'll be at the October Tinley. I think we'll have Sean and I probably won't be there, but we'll have at least a couple people at the NARBC in Arlington next month. So
Nice.
you could also save them up if we're coming to a show near you. You could save them up for a couple months and just hand them.
Oh, I'll bring plenty then because I'll be there. So,
Perfect.
So you were talking about you were talking about your website and everything for our listeners. Can you go ahead and just kind of as we wrap up, tell them where they can find you, how they can reach out to you, all that good stuff. So that way they have all the information they need to make sure they do this successfully.
Yeah. So specifically to send sheds in, and right after we get off this, I can text the address, and you can include it in your show notes or however you want to do that.
Yeah,
But it's a
absolutely.
simple PO box. Anytime you're ready, you just send it to that PO box, and it'll come to me, and I'll get it going. But yeah, so that's on our website, raregeneticsinc.com, and you click on the Help Us from the menu, and that will tell you how to send sheds in to develop new tests. But if you go to either our Instagram or our Facebook, you scroll down a little bit, we have like a little video that shows you, like if you're on your phone, it's a screen recording what it looks like when you go to the Help Us and, the
Cool.
PO box. We also have a YouTube show that we do once a week. It comes out on Monday nights called Reptile Genetics Weekly. And so we talk about these things all the time. Every week. We've been doing it for about 3 months now. I think we're on episode 21 or something like that. We've been doing it every Monday,
Nice.
like I said. So that's
Stay
another good place
consistent.
to
Yep.
hear what we're working on and what we've got working and what we're hoping to get soon, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, Ben, I thoroughly enjoyed geeking out about all this stuff, and I'm sure we could probably go on for another couple hours, but I just want to thank you again. Short notice, being willing to be flexible with recording late. You're over on the East Coast, so thank you so much for that. And hopefully we can have you back on somewhat in the near future with some updates. I definitely want to be a source for any updates that you have big in the retic industry. We would love to have you to come back on and let us know where you are with things. So this is definitely not going to be the first and only time. It will be the first time, but it won't be the only time that we have you on. But just want to say thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good night, Ben. And yeah, we'll be in touch soon.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, guys, there you have it. Awesome episode. I had a great time listening to that. Nathan, thoughts about it?
Yeah, no, I just want to put a challenge out there. Anyone listening to this episode, you have no excuse not to send a retic shed in if you keep a retic at home. So collect those sheds. Let's get a sample size out there, and let's, just advance this a little further.
Yeah. Don't forget our 1K sub giveaway. Go ahead and share our page. Share it on social media. Share it on your stories with the link in there. Help us get to 1K. And just want to give a major shout out to our Patreon members as your names are kind of flooding through the page. Thank you so much for all the support that you guys give us. And again, if you guys can't always listen to or watch our episodes on YouTube, you can just listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're looking forward to seeing you guys, having you guys listen next Friday. Have a good one.